Olivia sat by the kitchen window, the morning light spilling across her face as she stared out at the quiet street. Her coffee had gone cold, but she didn't move. The world outside looked peaceful, blue skies, soft wind, birds fluttering by. Yet inside her, there was only silence. It was early March, the month of Ethan's birthday. A time that once filled their home with laughter, balloons, and silly surprises. But lately, things between them felt distant. Like a song slowly fading before the last note. Ethan and Olivia had been married for 8 years. They had once been that couple everyone admired, always holding hands, always smiling, finishing each other's sentences. Their love had been warm and alive, the kind that made ordinary days feel special. But life had changed. Ethan's new job demanded long hours, late meetings, and endless travel. When he came home, he was too tired to talk. Olivia understood, she really did, but she missed him deeply. Every morning followed the same quiet rhythm. She'd wake up, make breakfast, wait for him to join her. And hear the same soft exchange. "Morning," he'd say, half awake. "Morning," she'd answer, with a small smile that he barely saw. There were no long hugs, no playful kisses, no random notes left on the counter like before. It wasn't anger that filled the space between them. It was distance. It's quiet and invisible, like fog that had slowly crept into their lives. Olivia had been trying to bring the spark back. She'd cook his favorite meals, plan movie nights, even light candles after dinner. But Ethan always seemed distracted, his eyes glued to his phone or his laptop. Each night she'd lie beside him in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering if love could fade without either person meaning for it to happen. Now, as his birthday approached, Olivia felt torn. She wanted to celebrate it, to remind him that their love still mattered. But a small voice inside whispered, "What if he doesn't care anymore?" Still, she pushed that thought aside. She loved him too much to give up, so she made plans. She ordered his favorite chocolate cake from the little bakery downtown, the same one they went to on their first anniversary. She bought fresh flowers, cleaned the house, and even picked out the blue shirt he once said she looked beautiful in when she wore it all day. She imagined his reaction. Maybe he'd walk in surprised, smile at her, and pull her into a hug. Maybe he'd say, "You remembered," and she'd laugh, pretending she hadn't spent weeks planning it. Maybe this birthday would be the moment that reminded them of who they once were. But as the day went on, her hope began to fade. Ethan hadn't said a word about his birthday. No mention at breakfast. No hint in his voice before he left for work. He just kissed her cheek quickly, grabbed his keys, and said, "Don't make dinner tonight, Liv. I'll be late." She froze, forcing a smile. "Okay," she said softly, trying not to let her voice break. When the door closed behind him, the silence in the house felt heavier than ever. She stood there, holding her coffee cup, staring at the space where he had been. For a long time, she didn't move. By afternoon, she gave up on the idea of the dinner. She placed the flowers in a vase and put the cake in the fridge, her excitement slowly turning into disappointment. She wasn't angry, just sad. A deep, quiet sadness that comes when love starts to feel one-sided. The hours crawled by. She tried to distract herself by cleaning, scrolling through old photos on her phone, pictures of them laughing, dancing, traveling. Each photo felt like a little echo of a love story that had once been loud and bright. Now it was a whisper. When evening came, she sat by the window again, watching the streetlights flicker on. It was nearly 8 o'clock. Ethan still hadn't come home or called. The dinner she had prepared in hope sat untouched on the table. She took a deep breath, picked up her wineglass, and whispered into the quiet room, "Happy birthday, Ethan." Her voice cracked at the end. Outside, the world carried on as if nothing had changed. Cars passed by, children's laughter echoed in the distance, and the night grew darker. Inside the small kitchen, Olivia felt like a ghost of her own happiness, waiting for someone to see her again. She thought about how love used to feel, how his laughter once filled the room, how his touch made her feel safe. Now all she felt was space, not anger or bitterness, just an empty space where connection used to live. She wondered if this was what marriage eventually became. Two people side by side, still together, but living in different worlds. Her phone lay silent on the counter. No messages, no calls. The clock ticked softly, each second stretching the ache in her chest a little more. She tried to tell herself he must be busy, that maybe he had a reason. But deep down, she couldn't help the small flicker of fear that maybe, just maybe, she had lost him a little without realizing when it happened. As she turned off the lights and got ready for bed, she caught a glimpse of their wedding photo hanging on the wall. They were standing by a lake, laughing, his arms wrapped around her. She stared at it for a long moment, then whispered, "We used to be so happy." Her eyes filled with tears, but she brushed them away quickly. She didn't want to cry on his birthday. She wanted to believe there was still a chance to find their way back. Then, just as she was about to walk into the bedroom, her phone buzzed. The sudden sound made her heart jump. She grabbed it quickly, and there it was, a message from Ethan. "Pack an overnight bag. Wear something warm. I'll be home in 20 minutes. She blinked in surprise, reading the message twice to make sure she wasn't imagining it. Her heart started to race. What was he planning? He hadn't said a word all day, and now this. Part of her wanted to be cautious, not to hope too much. But another part of her, the one that still believed in him, started to feel that long-lost spark flicker to life again. She ran to her closet, her mind spinning with questions and excitement. Maybe he hadn't forgotten. Maybe this was his way of reminding her that love hadn't disappeared. It had just been waiting for the right moment to return, and as the headlights appeared outside the window 20 minutes later, Olivia's heart pounded with something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Ethan walked briskly down the quiet street, his breath forming small clouds in the cold March air. The city was buzzing with its usual evening rhythm, but he hardly noticed. His mind was focused entirely on the small velvet box tucked safely in his coat pocket. Inside, it was a gift he had spent weeks planning, something simple yet deeply meaningful, something that could speak louder than any words. He had thought about her every day, wondering how to show Olivia how much he loved her, how much he had missed the connection they once shared. Work had consumed him, pulled him into endless meetings and deadlines. And he realized with a quiet ache that he had allowed time to pass without truly showing her. This birthday wasn't just a celebration for him. It was an opportunity to repair, to remind her and to remind himself of the bond that had always been there. The shop he entered was small and warm, filled with the soft scent of polished wood and jewelry cleaner. A few customers lingered, but none paid attention to him as he approached the counter. The shopkeeper greeted him with a knowing smile. Ethan returned it with a nervous nod. "I'm ready to take it," he said softly, motioning toward the necklace he had carefully chosen. The piece was elegant, understated, a thin gold chain holding a heart-shaped pendant. Inside the pendant, hidden from casual view, it's a tiny photograph. The two of them on their wedding day, laughing under a summer sky, their faces glowing with joy and hope. He had spent nights carefully choosing the photo, making sure it was perfect. A memory frozen in time that could capture everything words sometimes failed to convey. The shopkeeper nodded as she wrapped the necklace in soft velvet. "It's beautiful," she said quietly. "It's more than a gift, isn't it?" Ethan hesitated, then nodded. "It's not just the necklace," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "It's what comes with it. A promise, a memory, a chance to start over." He left the shop quickly, eager to get home before Olivia noticed anything. The plan had to stay a secret until the right moment. He had considered all the options. A fancy dinner, flowers delivered, even a big party with friends. But nothing felt right. They didn't need anyone else. They didn't need grand gestures. What they needed was each other and a reminder of the love that had always been there. He thought back to their honeymoon, to the little cabin by the lake in Vermont. They had laughed under fairy lights, danced barefoot on the porch, and whispered dreams late into the night. It had been perfect, simple, and full of love. That cabin had been their safe place, their secret world where nothing else mattered. Ethan realized that returning there could be the perfect gift, a trip back to the start, a chance to reconnect in a way they hadn't done in months. Meanwhile, At home, Olivia was still waiting, her hope wavering between excitement and doubt. She had spent the day preparing a small dinner, her heart full of anticipation but clouded with worry. She tried to focus on the flowers she had arranged and the cake in the fridge. But every passing hour made her feel the weight of his absence. She stared at the clock repeatedly, imagining all the reasons why he might not come home. And each thought left a small ache in her chest. Then the message came, breaking the silence and her doubts in a single moment. Pack an overnight bag. Wear something warm. I'll be home in 20 minutes. Her heart leaped. She couldn't help but feel nervous, excited, and curious all at once. What had he planned? Why this sudden secrecy? Part of her wanted to overthink it, to fear disappointment, but a deeper part, the part that remembered every laugh, every hug, every quiet moment they had shared, couldn't help but hope. Back at the city outskirts, Ethan drove carefully through the streets, the small necklace resting on the passenger seat next to him. His mind raced through all the moments he wanted to share with Olivia. He remembered the first time he had held her hand, the way she had laughed at his silly jokes, the long nights talking about dreams and fears. Each memory reminded him why he was doing this, why he couldn't let their love drift away unnoticed. He imagined her reaction when she saw the necklace. He imagined her eyes lighting up, her smile breaking into a laugh. And the way she would look at him, really look at him, with all the love and understanding that had first brought them together. That thought made his chest tighten with anticipation and a little fear. Could he truly recreate that magic after months of quiet distance? Could he remind her that love wasn't gone, just waiting to be felt again? When Ethan finally reached their neighborhood, he parked the car and checked his reflection in the rearview mirror. He ran a hand through his hair, took a deep breath, reminded himself that this was not just a birthday surprise. It was a chance to heal, to reconnect, to rediscover each other. The velvet box in his pocket felt heavier now, not with the weight of gold, but with the weight of everything he wanted to say without words. He stepped out of the car and started walking toward the house, excitement and nerves making his steps quick and uneven. As he approached, he saw Olivia standing by the window, staring out at the street as if she were expecting him, though she didn't know exactly what. Her silhouette in the warm light made his heart ache with longing. He wanted to wrap her in his arms, to tell her everything, but he knew he had to wait for the right moment. Timing mattered. The surprise, the setting, the words, all had to come together perfectly. Ethan entered the house quietly, careful not to give away the surprise. Olivia's eyes met his for a moment, full of unspoken questions, before he handed her a small note with instructions. Pack an overnight bag. Wear something warm. We're going on a little trip, it read. He didn't say anything else, letting the words carry the weight of the plan. Olivia's eyes widened in disbelief and curiosity. She had expected nothing tonight, had nearly resigned herself to a quiet, lonely evening. Yet here he was, asking her to trust him, to follow him into a secret, magical adventure. Her heart began to race. Part of her feared disappointment, but the stronger part, the part that still remembered every laugh and tender moment, wanted to believe, wanted to follow him anywhere. As Olivia hurried to pack, Ethan prepared the car, placing the necklace carefully on the passenger seat, hidden under a soft cloth. He glanced back at her room, seeing her movement, the soft focus of her mind on anticipation, and felt a sense of hope he hadn't felt in months. This could be the night they remembered why they loved each other in the first place. The air in the house was charged with excitement, unspoken tension, and a gentle nervousness. Both of them were on the edge of something important, a moment that could bring back laughter, closeness, and warmth they had almost forgotten. Ethan watched Olivia slip her coat on, her hair tucked neatly inside, and he felt the familiar surge of love that had always drawn him to her. Finally, everything was ready. The car doors closed, the engine started, and the world outside blurred into motion. Ethan glanced at Olivia, her eyes shining with curiosity, anticipation, and a touch of wonder. The road stretched ahead, leading them away from the everyday life, toward a place filled with memories, love, and a promise waiting to be fulfilled. Ethan knew that tonight, no words were needed. Every mile, every turn, every gentle glance would speak for him. This birthday was not just a date on a calendar, it was a chance to bring their hearts together again. To show Olivia that their love had never left, only been waiting for the perfect moment to shine once more. As the city lights faded behind them, the excitement of the unknown filled the car. The necklace, the trip, the surprise, it all waited to create a memory that would last a lifetime. And in the quiet hum of the engine, Ethan whispered to himself, She'll feel everything. And Olivia, sitting beside him, could only wonder what magic awaited them. Not knowing that this birthday was about to become unforgettable, the car rolled steadily along the highway. Snow beginning to fall lightly, dusting the windshield with delicate white flakes. Olivia sat beside Ethan, her hands clutched tightly in her lap, her mind racing with questions. The message he had sent earlier, pack an overnight bag, wear something warm, I'll be home in 20 minutes, had left her both nervous and excited. She had no idea what he had planned, but the way he smiled occasionally at the road, glancing at her with quiet confidence, made her heart race with anticipation. Ethan drove with care, eyes fixed on the road, but he could feel her tension beside him. He wanted to talk, to explain, to tell her everything, but he knew the moment wasn't ready. He wanted the surprise to unfold naturally, like a story revealing itself page by page. The city lights soon faded behind them, replaced by dark stretches of road lined with tall trees dusted with snow. The air inside the car was warm, the soft hum of the heater blending with the faint melody playing on the radio. A tune that once reminded them both of simpler times. Olivia kept stealing glances at him. His profile in the soft dashboard light looked familiar and yet distant. A man she knew deeply but hadn't truly connected with in months. She noticed the subtle worry lines on his forehead, the way his jaw tightened slightly when he concentrated, the faint spark in his eyes that always made her heart flutter. Part of her wondered if he had planned something extravagant, something that could bridge the silence that had grown between them. Part of her feared disappointment, but a stronger part clung to hope, to the memory of the love they had shared, and to the trust she had always placed in him. Ethan broke the silence finally, his voice low and steady. "It won't be long now," he said, not offering details but enough to tease her curiosity. Olivia's fingers flexed around her bag strap, and she felt a thrill of excitement. They hadn't had a moment like this. Just the two of them, away from routine, away from obligations, in far too long. She realized she had forgotten what it felt like to simply ride beside him, to feel anticipation instead of fatigue or distraction. The snow fell heavier as they drove through winding roads, leading into the countryside. Headlights illuminated the frosted landscape, and the quiet of the evening pressed around them. Olivia noticed how Ethan slowed the car for each turn, careful and deliberate. Yet there was a lightness in his movement, a hidden joy he tried not to show too soon. The rhythm of the drive was hypnotic, the silence between them filled with unspoken words and shared memories. She couldn't help but remember the first time they had driven together at night, windows down, laughter spilling into the wind, music blaring, feeling endless and free. Tonight felt different, but the memories made it bittersweet. As the miles passed, Olivia's mind drifted to the cabin. She remembered stories he had told her of Vermont, of lakes reflecting the sky, of quiet nights with only the sound of the wind and the water. She wondered if he would take her there. The thought made her chest tighten with excitement. If this was the place, it would be perfect. She had often thought about returning there, but had never suggested it. It had always been their special memory. And now the thought that he might bring her back made her eyes well up with anticipation. Ethan stole a glance at her, noticing the subtle signs of emotion, the way her lips pressed together, the slight tremble of her fingers, the wide eyes taking in the fading light. He reached over and gently brushed a strand of hair from her face, a small gesture loaded with meaning. Olivia's heart skipped a beat, and she turned toward him, ready to say something, but he shook his head gently. No words yet. Patience. He wanted the moment to hit her all at once. The road narrowed as they climbed into the hills, snow covering the pavement in delicate layers. The landscape opened up to reveal glimpses of frozen lakes and snow-covered forests. Olivia gasped quietly, the beauty of it taking her breath away. Ethan kept glancing at her, enjoying her reactions. He wanted her to feel every second, to realize that he had thought of everything: the route, the weather, the scenery, the memories they would relive. Every detail mattered to him because she mattered to him, after what felt like an eternity wrapped in quiet suspense. The road curved sharply, and in the distance, Olivia saw it. Her breath caught. The cabin. It stood just as she remembered, tucked near the edge of a frozen lake, the snow on its roof glowing softly in the twilight. Lights flickered from the windows, warm and inviting, and the faint smell of wood smoke seemed to drift on the cold air. She turned to Ethan, eyes wide. "Is this?" she began, but words failed her. Ethan opened the cabin door, and warm light spilled out to meet them. Olivia stepped inside, her eyes adjusting to the cozy interior. The faint scent of cedar and old wood, the soft flicker of the fireplace. Everything was perfect. It wasn't a grand gesture, it wasn't expensive or flashy, but it was theirs. Their memory, their moment, carefully preserved and ready to be shared again. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out the small velvet box, placing it in her hands. Olivia's fingers trembled as she opened it. The necklace gleamed in the firelight, delicate and beautiful. Her eyes widened as she noticed the tiny photograph inside the pendant, on their wedding day, smiling and full of hope. She looked up at Ethan, her voice catching. This is beautiful." Ethan stepped closer, taking her hands gently in his. "I know I haven't been the best lately. Work, life. I let it take me away from you. But I wanted you to see that I still remember everything. I remember us. I see you, Olivia, always." Tears fell freely now, sliding down her cheeks, and Ethan wiped them away with a tender thumb. They didn't speak for a moment, letting the warmth, the memory, the love fill the room. It wasn't about gifts or words. It was about being seen, being known, and being loved even after months of silence. The fire crackled behind them as Olivia hugged him tightly. For the first time in months, she felt the distance between them disappear. The cabin, the necklace, the surprise, all of it had worked. It wasn't just a birthday gift. It was a reminder of everything they had built, everything they had shared, and everything they still could. Outside, the snow continued to fall softly, blanketing the world in quiet beauty. Inside, they held each other, laughter and tears mingling, hearts reconnecting. The drive, the anticipation, the secret plan it had all led to this moment. A moment of joy, love, and rediscovery. Ethan whispered in her ear, "This is just the beginning." And Olivia, holding him close, knew it was true. This birthday would be remembered forever, not for the gift itself, but for the love it represented, love that had endured, survived distance, and now shone brighter than ever. The cabin, the lake, the quiet night, it all became a memory they would revisit in their hearts again and again. A reminder that even after months of silence, love could always find its way back. If you want, I can continue part 4 in the same fast-paced, emotional, YouTube-friendly style next. So the story will have a complete, heartfelt ending. Do you want me to do that? The cabin was quiet, the only sound the gentle crackle of the fire in the hearth. Olivia held the velvet box in her hands, her fingers trembling as she opened it fully. The gold necklace gleamed in the warm light, the delicate heart-shaped pendant catching every flicker of the flames. Inside the pendant was the tiny photograph of them on their wedding day, laughing under the summer sky, young and full of hope. For a moment, she couldn't speak. The years of distance, of missed moments, seemed to fade away in an instant, replaced by a wave of emotion she could no longer hold back. Ethan watched her closely, his own heart racing. He had spent weeks planning this surprise, thinking about every detail: the cabin, the drive, the quiet night away from the city, and now, seeing her reaction, he knew it had all been worth it. He stepped closer, his voice soft but steady. "Olivia, you've given me everything. Love, patience, a home, a life I never imagined I could have. I wanted to give you something that could remind you that I see you, that I love you, that I've never stopped." Tears fell freely down Olivia's cheeks as she looked up at him, her eyes shining. She had been carrying months of unspoken longing, missing the intimacy and connection that had once been effortless between them. The necklace, simple yet meaningful, spoke louder than any words could. It wasn't the jewelry, but the thought, the effort, the memory inside it that mattered most. She reached for his hands, holding them tightly, and whispered, "It's perfect. I can't even—" Her words trailed off, overcome by the raw emotion of the moment. Ethan gently lifted her chin, forcing her to meet his gaze. "You don't have to say anything," he said. "Just feel it. That's all I want. For you to feel how much you mean to me." Olivia nodded, taking a shaky breath, letting the warmth of the fire, the cabin, and his presence wash over her. The distance that had grown between them melted like snow under the spring sun. For the first time in months, she felt seen, understood, and loved without conditions. They sat down together on the couch, Olivia leaning into him, the necklace resting gently against her chest. Ethan wrapped his arms around her, holding her close, and for a long while, neither of them spoke. The firelight danced across the room, illuminating memories of their past and promising new ones in the future. Olivia thought of all the times she had doubted him, the quiet sadness that had built in her heart, and realized how deeply she had missed moments like this, not grand gestures, but quiet, intimate reminders of love. Finally, Olivia broke the silence. I can't believe you remembered this place. Remembered us," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It feels like you've brought back everything I thought we'd lost." Ethan smiled, brushing a tear from her cheek. "I never forgot," he replied. "Life gets busy, I get distracted, but you are my heart. I want you to know that every single day." She rested her head on his shoulder, closing her eyes, letting herself feel the emotions she had kept inside for so long. The years of routine, stress, and distance had faded, placed by the simplicity of being together in a place that mattered to both of them. She felt her heart open again, the kind of love that had first drawn her to him, full of warmth, trust, and deep connection. Ethan held her tighter, pressing a soft kiss to her temple. "This birthday isn't about the necklace," he said, his voice low and earnest. "It's about us. About remembering why we fell in love and why we keep choosing each other even when life gets hard." Olivia nodded, her eyes brimming with tears of joy. She realized that the gift was more than jewelry. It was a promise, a renewal, a way of saying, "I see you, I love you, and I always will." The night stretched on, filled with soft laughter, quiet conversations, and shared memories. They reminisced about their honeymoon, about silly adventures and little moments they had almost forgotten. Each story, each smile, each touch reminded them of the bond they had built over the years. Olivia felt lighter than she had in months, the heavy weight of worry and longing lifted by the simple act of being seen, loved, and cherished. Ethan suggested they step outside for a moment, and together they walked to the frozen lake nearby. The snow had settled quietly over the landscape, reflecting the soft glow of the cabin lights. Olivia held the necklace close, feeling its warmth, feeling the love it represented, and realizing that this moment, this night, was more than a birthday. It was a reminder of everything they had survived, everything they had shared, and everything they still had to look forward to. The cold air nipped at their cheeks, but it didn't matter. They held hands, walking along the edge of the frozen lake, the quiet only broken by the soft crunch of snow beneath their feet. Olivia felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in months. For a long time, she had worried that the love they had built was slipping away. That work, stress, and routine had dimmed the connection between them. But now, with Ethan by her side, she felt that spark return, stronger, deeper, more beautiful than ever. When they returned to the cabin, they curled up in front of the fire again. Olivia placed the necklace around her neck, the heart-shaped pendant resting close to her heart. She looked at Ethan, her eyes full of gratitude and love. This is the best gift I've ever received," she said softly. "Not because of what it is, but because of what it means. You remembered me and us, and that's more than I could ever ask for." Ethan smiled, brushing a lock of hair from her face. "And I will keep remembering," he said, "every day, because this you is worth every effort, every moment, every little thing I can do to make you happy." They sat in silence for a while, letting the warmth of the fire, the cabin, and each other fill the room. No words were needed. Their hearts spoke for them louder than any speech or gesture ever could. As the night deepened, Livia leaned into him, feeling safe and cherished in a way she hadn't in months. The necklace glimmered softly against her chest, a reminder of love, memory, and promises renewed. Ethan held her close, knowing that the distance, the stress, and the challenges of life would never be stronger than what they shared. Finally, Olivia whispered, "This birthday, I'll never forget it." Ethan kissed her forehead softly, replying, "Neither will I tonight." We found each other again. Outside, the snow continued to fall, the world quiet and still, while inside, two hearts rediscovered the joy, warmth, and beauty of love that had always been theirs. It wasn't about the gifts or the surprises. It was about seeing, feeling, and choosing each other every day. And for Olivia and Ethan, this night became a memory they would cherish forever. A moment when love, care, and thoughtfulness turned a simple birthday into a lifelong promise.